Okay, so we're going to welcome you now. Thanks so much for joining us. I'm Ruth Sharon, and I'm here with my adorable husband,
Oh,
Jim
how sweet.
Sharon.
Sweet.
And we are launching this inaugural event called Heartwise Guide to Relationships. So we have compiled this book, Heartwise, and there's 16 chapters in here. And our speaker tonight, Linda Bloom, is in here talking about wonderful characteristics we need to have in our relationship. So just a brief moment about this book. Heartwise was Jim's inspiration of gathering all these people together and having like a wisdom pool of all these good ideas that we can all share with. And so out of this book is this Heartwise Guide to Relationships, and then we're creating the Heartwise Relationship Academy, so that we're having pre-recorded courses that you can watch at your leisure. And Linda and Charlie just filmed theirs, so that's exciting. Can't wait to see how that turns out. So I wanted to just share about this whole topic of conflict. So I have, I'm kind of in the stage where I'm doing a lot of life review and looking back on my life. And I remember as a little girl, I just had this devotion for people to get along with each other and love each other and find ways to connect with each other. So it's always been in my heart. And so to have Heartwise now is just like such a joy, you know, it's like the fulfillment of a heart's desire. And some of my earliest memories are having my parents having an argument about something. And I was like standing in my doorway and out of my bed, you know, looking at them talking. And I was about 4 or 5, and it didn't make sense. It was like, well, she's saying this and he's not listening. If he would just listen, then she would know that he heard her, and then there wouldn't be this problem, you know. It just seems so simple to me as a child. So it's informed my whole career as a counselor and a coach and a writer and a speaker and all that. So this conflict topic is near and dear to our hearts, isn't it?
It is.
Yes. So do you want to say anything about this poster that I dug out?
No.
There's a big poster here that was from our Conflict Resolution Institute that we founded in the 80s. So we've been at this a long time, working together since the 70s. So as we gather together here, I would like us to construct the sense of a circle, that we're gathered around the wisdom pool that we can share with each other and learn with each other. So just kind of feel that kind of hanging out around the wisdom pool. So Jim, do you want to take it from here?
Yeah. So conflict, that's the topic of tonight, right? It sure does happen, doesn't it? I mean, there's nobody who's a stranger to even conflict on a fairly regular basis at the very least, right? But how we respond to conflict, how we react and respond to it really varies, doesn't it? Quite a bit, all kinds of different ways. So a lot of conflict and manipulation alongside of that, I'll dare say, results from power imbalances in relationships. And a typical scenario or pattern there would be one partner expressing or coming from how do I want to say it, one-up position, and the other acting one down, so operating from that place. That gets a little bit messy a lot of times, doesn't it? And it doesn't always look blatant. You know, sometimes these behaviors and these roles are subtle or even passive aggressive. And to give you some examples, some simple examples, a one-up or dominant stance could look like controlling the budget, you know, taking full control there, and making demands rather than requests would be another example. Oh, another one might be a very common one is just making demeaning remarks or sarcastic ones. So those are some examples of one-upsmanship. Now, the one down or more submissive kind of posture would be things like procrastination, making actually minimizing conversation. And something that a lot of people report in my practice beyond minimizing conversation would be prolonged silence treatments, or withholding sex is a whole different one. So these get played out a lot in conflict situations. So our facilitator tonight, we're about to introduce, Linda Bloom, is going to be walking you through some various ways of shifting from habitual ways that people react or respond to conflict to restored connection. And Linda, who's about to come on here from Santa Cruz, and her husband, Charlie, as Ruth mentioned, wrote a chapter in our book that was released, recently published in January. This one, Heartwise. They wrote Relationship Building Blocks and Practices. And Charlie and Linda are both social workers. They are very well-published authors who've had several of their relationship books have been bestsellers. They're sought-after speakers. And as Ruth also alluded to, Linda and Charlie are going to be offering a course available as of mid-May, which expands on her topic for tonight. And that's going to be an online course available through our Heartwise Relationship Academy. So straight from Santa Cruz, Linda Bloom. Come on in, Linda.
Here I am, and thank you for inviting me, and welcome everybody to this really essential topic about how to handle our differences gracefully. So it's quite an art form, and it takes some time to master it, but the payoffs are tremendous when we become what we often refer to, my husband and I, when we teach, become a warrior of the heart. So it requires that we have some strength and we have some courage and determination and self-discipline, because it's going to call forth our best self. And I often say that arguments are growth waiting to happen. And if we can bring that kind of curiosity to what's going on here, and you both mentioned the power imbalance, often what's going on there is someone is feeling like they're threatened, that they may not be able to get their needs met. And there's a power struggle. So when they have differences, they sort of lobby in their own behalf, sometimes with unskillful means. We often pick up habits in our family that are not really graceful. And, you know, Ruth gave that poignant example of being a little tender child, a little sensitive girl, watching her parents fighting with each other and saying, this doesn't make sense. Why don't they just listen to each other? Just to a small child, it can be so obvious. When we're that adult, the little bratty child who's frightened and acting out, maybe having a tantrum, is not thinking with their creative neocortex. All they've got operating for them when they feel threatened is the reptilian brain that only knows fight and flight, fight, and freeze. And so when we take on the challenge of becoming an exquisite warrior of the heart, every time we have a conflict, we learn how to manage it well, bring that spirit of curiosity and wonder to the event so we can learn something about ourselves and our sore spots, which we all have, and learn something about the other person who may be getting tense, irritable, reactive, and know their areas of sensitivity. We can't always sidestep the areas of sensitivity, but it's important to know what they are. And sometimes we can head off trouble at the pass just by being very respectful of the sore places that we each have. And that's a different kind of a conversation, other than you're doing it to me and I'm feeling victimized by you and you're dominating me and you're abandoning me and all those things that really cause us a tremendous amount of heartache. So I want to tell you how it is that this became a specialty of my husband and myself. Anybody who does couples counseling is going to be dealing with couples that their differences. But we had so much to learn just to keep our relationship intact, because we were a couple of hotheads when we met back in our very early 20s. We were both pretty bratty and very manipulative and drug in old dysfunctional family of origin patterns. And so we had a lot to learn. But I want to testify that we both have a signature strength of being hungry learners. So we paid attention and we learned from our mistakes, and we made a lot of them. Our first book is called 101 Things I Wish I Knew When I Got Married, which is a lot about the mistakes that we made. And I want to tell you right away that it was narrowed down from over 300. And we didn't want to write a book that was a big heavy tome. We wanted to write a book that was going to be user friendly. So we narrowed it down to the 101 most important things that we learned. And we paid attention, and we learned that we were not as good a listeners as we thought that we were. Ruth talked about her parents, and she said if they would just listen to each other, we'd probably come to some kind of understanding. Maybe not agreement, but they at least understand each other. And understanding is a lot. It calms us down when we feel gotten, when we feel understood. So my husband and I, we practiced. We had a lot of places where we were different. So we had way more opportunities to practice than we ever thought we should ever have. He's quite introverted. I have been called a flaming extrovert. You can tell whether you're an introvert or an extrovert, not by how social and gabby you are, where you go under stress. When my husband is stressed, he likes to be quiet with himself and he goes inside. Me, when I'm stressed, I want to talk about it. I got a list with 30 names on it. I go down the names of the people on my precious friendship list because I want to talk it through. I want to process it through. That's where extroverts go. And so when I would be upset about something, his stance was to walk off. He wants to give me time to go inside and figure out what I'm feeling and thinking and needing. And that was the last thing that I needed, because I wanted connection with him. So whatever it was that originally was irritating both of us, that caused the conflict, was compounded by then I felt alone. He doesn't care about me. He doesn't love me. He doesn't want to help me. Doesn't want to listen. And I would intrude on his need for silence in the meditative pause way too often. And I was somewhat demanding in our early years about, we've got to handle this right now. And I learned over time to respect his way of doing things, that he may need to go journal, he may need to go meditate, he may need to go and take a walk and pull himself together. And so we made an agreement that whoever needed a break when things got overheated, you could take a break. No questions asked. Now, as I'm giving you some of these hot tips of the things that really help you be graceful in your dealing with differences, do a checklist in your own mind. I got that listening thing down. Do we have an agreement to have a break if things start to get overheated? And do an assessment about how well you're doing on your path to become blue ribbon, conflict management people. So we learned to respect the differences, and we learned to listen well, and we learned how to learn from each other. And it was a peak experience in my life when I realized that opposites really do attract. When we teach our classes, we say complements attract, that there's a very deep, wise, intuitive, knowing part of ourselves that is attracted to other people. Of course, we have our interests in common that bond us, but there also is a deeper knowing that this person is strong in areas that I am not, and this drive for mastery that we all have gravitates us, not just in romantic partnerships, in friendships, to people who have strengths we don't have, and we have strengths they don't have. The very same things that magnetize us to each other, that magic factor, why we're drawn to some people and some people not so much, is the very thing that after the infatuation stage fades, drive us nuts. And that's when the conflict starts. And we feel like we want to change them a little bit, the home improvement plan, because we love them so much for their own good. I'm tongue in cheek here. So when we find that we have differences, if we can bring that curiosity and wonder, we will learn a whole lot about ourselves and our partner. One of the things that we did, Charlie and I, was of our intention. I didn't even call it intention in the beginning. I used to call it introductory remarks. I would make a little prelude before I would get into the topic. John Gottman is a researcher that I respect very highly. He calls it softened startup. And it would sound a little bit like this. I have something on my mind, something bothering me, something on my heart. I would really like it if you would sit down and listen to me just so I can get this off of my chest. So it invites him in. Are you willing to talk about it right now? I had to be willing to take no for an answer. And I would ask him to give me a rain check if it wasn't a good time. And then to the best of my ability, I would start with something positive. Sincerely, no BS. It's because I want to be close to you. It's because I value our relationship so much. I don't want anything in the way. I don't want any debris in the channel. I want to handle this right away so we can be as close as can be as much of the time as we can. Over time, we came to call those the incompletions. You know, the things that we don't want to talk about because they could be loaded and get us into an argument. You know, you have a little one here and a little one there and a little one here and a little there. Over the months, they're mounting up. They can be a huge mountain of incompletions that interfere with our closeness, our emotional intimacy, our trust, our sexual intimacy. It can really wreak havoc on the relationship. So I'd make these introductory remarks and I'd say, it's because I love you so much and I want to be as close to you as I can be. And I want to be as honest as I can be about what's going on with me. So he'd say, okay, I'll listen. And I would get a chance to get things off my chest. And it's embarrassing to say how long it went on for that I was not graceful about the way I expressed myself. I had brought bad patterns in from my family. No blame on my family. They brought it from their parents and their parents from their parents. I mean, our parents want to give us the best they've got. And they did. They gave me the best that they had. But they were very judgmental about the way they spoke to each other. And they were critical about the way they spoke to each other. And their interactions were full of manipulations, the power and control game. So I had to learn how to speak. You hear all the time about I statements. And sometimes I would start out good and I'd say I, and I would even say feel. And I'd say, I feel that you're acting like an asshole. And that would not be constructive. And I had to really learn how to speak from my experience, which is speaking from my heart, speaking from my feelings and my needs rather than my opinions, which are often judgmental and critical. And this is an art form. to take the time to tune in to what's going on inside us, be in touch with our own feelings, especially the tender ones, the vulnerable ones, like fear and like feeling hurt. And when we can be brave enough and courageous enough to risk sticking our neck out and exposing those very tender feelings, it generally invites vulnerability from the other person. It does not guarantee that they will be vulnerable back. We might stick our neck out and they might go for the jugular. You know how the wolves go into the wolf pack, they offer their neck up. That's to show I'm not here to do anything hostile. I'm not biting anybody. See, I'm exposing myself. And that requires a tremendous amount of courage and self-discipline to be willing to drop down to that level of vulnerability, because we don't know how it's going to be received. Generally speaking, when we speak from our experience and speak from our heart, it invites closeness, it builds the trust, it sets up a context and an environment for two people to really meet, to connect, to learn from each other, to understand, and the trust will go up. So you could plug in any subject: money, sex, power, preferences, desires of all kinds, how to raise the kids, how to discipline the kids, the in-laws. These are just some garden variety items that tend to be conflictual. And then we all have our idiosyncratic ones in addition to the most popular ones. But if we can have a commitment to ourselves and invite, if we have a spouse, if we have a lover, if we have a close friend, because this is applicable across the board. I tend to use my partnership as the illustration because we learn most of this in the trenches of romantic partnership, but it applies to all relationships. Parent-child, our own parents, our own siblings, our own kids, our neighbors, our supervisors at work, the people we supervise. These are applicable across the board. You will have gradations of how vulnerable you want to get in the workplace, but the people that we are the closest to, our deepest love connections, that's where we practice the deepest vulnerability. So I sometimes think about the image suit that we suit up and we've got our ego presentation all together. That's our looking good self. And we take that out in the world, and we would be foolish with some people out in the world to unzip our looking good suit. And we sometimes mistake our authentic self for our presentation or our persona. So the challenge is to be able to unzip with our most trusted confidants, the ones that we want to know us deeply, that we want to have intimate into me see my innermost self, see my feelings of insecurity, see my magnificent failures, see my tender places, see the places that are still sore on me, because we could be in league with each other to be healers to each other. We could have corrective experiences. If we've come from a family of shouters and yellers, we could modulate our tone and we could be heard. Finally. If we had people who weren't present with us because of alcoholism in the family, or drug addiction in the family, or work addiction in the family, or just being preoccupied with their own concerns, and we're tender about people not being present with us, being ignored, being abandoned, Some of us had very difficult childhood experiences where we were literally abandoned. People have parents who went off to prison, or left the family not to be heard again. And if we have tenderness around that area, we can finally be met with our closest relationships in a way that that deep wound finally heals, where we feel that we are precious. They didn't leave because there was anything objectionable or unlovable about us to start with, but a child can't understand that. So as an adult, we can see I've got these very tender places, and my closest relationships can heal those tender places where I finally can trust that my needs will be met, and I don't have to fight to have them met. I can trust that we've got a good deal going here, that I can appeal to your enlightened self-interest. If you help me to get my needs met, I'm going to be full to overflowing. I can't help myself but want to give back, generous of spirit. I want to know what all of your needs are, and I want to help you to get those met. If I can't meet them myself, because I can't meet all of them, I'll brainstorm with you so that you can see how that you can get them met. And that's a very powerful contract to have with a close friend. If you have a sister, if you have a brother that you're close to, or you. And the other thing that we're, in addition to healing each other, that just gets us up to neutral, out of the minus zone, to pull into the plus. Okay, let's make a deal that we're going to use every single piece of this relationship as grist for the mill to learn how to be the best people that we can be. I'm going to bring out the best in you. You bring out the best in me. It's going to be a rocky road sometimes while we're doing this learning curve, but that is a powerful contract to make with each other. So when we wrote the chapter about the building blocks of relationship to contribute to the beautiful collection in the Heartwise book, Charlie and I sat down and we said, one of the most important contributions that we could make is to spark people's imagination to assess where their signature strengths are so they can pat themselves on the back for those. And then to be willing to tell themselves the truth, and maybe at least one other person, about their weak suit, that they're in process. Because we need all of them to be developed, at least partially, not fully. But if our weak suit is that we're impatient, we're going to have opportunities to practice with our lab partner to become more patient. If we tend to avoid bringing up the crucial conversations and put them in the denial zone, and we're avoidant, I'm here to testify that years ago I was conflict avoidant. I'm not anymore. Happy to report. But if you're avoidant, then the quality would be courage to risk bringing up the tough subjects. If you're a blurter and you tend to get volatile and you shout, or Jim was talking about sarcasm, that can be cutting. It's not funny. And it's a manipulation tactic that's common, and it really costs us if we use it. So self-discipline would be keeping our mouth shut so that hurtful remarks don't come out of our mouth, that we practice pausing and reflecting how our remarks are going to land on the other person before we say them. And of course, there's commitment is a mighty building block. And some people have their foot in the back door. And if it gets too hard and it gets too difficult, I'm out of here. And there certainly are times when it is the only kind thing to do for ourselves is to leave a situation, sometimes even permanently. But what my husband and I find in our 4 decades plus of working with couples, often people leave at the darkest hour just before the dawn, just before they rise up to a higher level of responsibility. They're in so much pain and they feel so victimized by the other person, exploited, misunderstood, neglected, whatever, that they leave. And it's that crucial point. It's like transition during childbirth, just when you think you can't take it another minute, and then this rebirth happens. And if you can hang in, you work out your commitment muscles so that you can hang in the difficult conversations, in the difficult, challenging times. The birth into the beautiful, trusting, fulfilling relationship becomes available to you. I did mention, and I want to flesh it out a little bit more because I feel like it's such an important concept for people to understand and propose to the people who are closest to them. And that's the concept of enlightened self-interest, that we appeal to the people who are closest to us. I want you to succeed, because if you're happy and you are getting your needs met and you feel understood and respected and cherished and honored by me, I know that you're going to be abundant in what you're going to be able to bring to me and lavish on me, and I will be the happy recipient. So I want to be in league with you, to know what your needs are, to know what your desires are, to know what your sore spots are. I want to be there for you so that we can pull way into the plus. You know, Maslow, he was the one who coined the term self-actualization. We want to climb Mount Maslow, not just be at the lower bottom end where we have our survival needs met for safety and security, a house, roof over our head, food on the table, money to put gas in the car so we can go places. We want to move up the higher realms. And at the top, the pinnacle, is we feel that we have developed our signature strengths, that we know what our purpose is in our life, that we know what it is that lights us up, that gives us peace of mind and well-being. And if we have somebody in our life who is transformation curious, has a commitment to their own personal growth, then everything that the relationship tosses up, every argument, every difference, every place that chafes, is all a chance for discovery and growth. There's prices that have to be paid. It's a cultivated taste. A lot of people, it's not their thing to be out there on the skinny branches, on the raw edge, where the vulnerability and the openness takes place. It was a process of open and close. Committed to opening, well, I don't know if I want to go that far. And one of the core teachings and how we open our relationship workshops frequently is to give the students right in the beginning this mantra: to reveal rather than conceal, to express rather than repress, and to connect rather than protect. And I'm here to testify that it's a piece of work to do that on a consistent basis. But if we do it, the bonanza of benefits that come raining down on us are pretty glorious. To finally be seen and heard and known and loved as is, because when we're presenting the looking good image to the world, even if people say to us, I love you, there's a little voice in the back of our mind saying, if they really knew me, they wouldn't love me so much. So we have to come out from behind that persona, the looking good self, the mask that we wear, with our trusted, select, precious few, and let them see us, warts and all, scars and all, flaws and all, glorious self and all, our most divine, evolved self, and let ourselves be seen. And aren't we all such a mixed bag? Every single person. I've been blessed to know a living saint in my time. Thich Nhat Hanh, he's passed away now. He's not in his body anymore. But I really believe that he was a living saint in our time, and he had such beautiful teachings. And I once did a 7-day retreat, and he told the whole assembly that he gets angry sometimes. And that was a profound teaching to me. There isn't anything wrong about feeling angry. Or when we feel it, it's all the difference. Whether we have learned how to manage it well. And I almost never use the phrase conflict resolution. I always use conflict management because it's an ongoing process, and we learn how to manage it well. And, the second book that my husband and I wrote is called Secrets of Great Marriages, Real Truths from Real Couples About Lasting Love. We had been seeing suffering couples for so many years that we needed an antidote to all of the angst, and all of the heartache interfacing with these very unhappy, frightened, shut down, distant couples. And so we said, well, let's go find the happiest couples we can find and let them tell us their secrets of success. I sometimes call them the Olympic athletes of marriage. It was so enjoyable to let them tell us their secrets. They did not luck into those fabulous marriages. They earned their way in. And there were silver threads and golden threads that went through all of the stories. They had plenty of differences. They just created a big space so it wasn't so cramped. They learned how to be warriors of the heart. They learned how to listen well. They learned how to speak from their experience. They learned how to keep their judgments and their criticism, not only from flowing out of their mouth, but over time, they didn't even think them anymore. It was just the generosity of spirit that grew up over time. They learned how to be with each other in such a respectful way. They learned, a lot of them, how to do talking meditation, where they slowed down the rate of speed with which they spoke to each other so that they would deliver their message and then wait for it to be received, to watch the facial expression and the body language. How is their message being received? And then they open themselves up to receive the message of the person they were conversing with. And it was a deeply spiritual practice. They could hear each other in a different way, maybe not agree, but a deep understanding, a deep respect. And we saw them do it right in front of our eyes. One of the other things that we saw was how they headed off trouble at the past. They headed off trouble at the past by being so acknowledging and affirming of each other. They were sincere. And I'm remembering one couple that we interviewed right now, and he had had a cocaine addiction. And it took him a while to kick it. And his wife, Eileen, I can use their names because almost everybody was so proud of what they had accomplished. They didn't ask us to disguise them. And he turned to Eileen, we were interviewing them in person. And he says, she's a saint. She's so patient. She hung in with me. And I was really difficult when I was an addict. And we were very moved by that. But they would affirm each other in such a meaningful way. And I think when we feel seen for who we are, flaws and all, and we're seen for our greatness, and we're abundant with each other with our appreciation and gratitude. I told Jim and Ruth that we refer to this as making abundant positive deposits in karma savings and loan. Every time we affirm each other, every time we appreciate each other, every time we catch each other doing something right, we're making abundant deposits in karma savings and loan. We want to build up a big account, and it can't get overdrawn when we have a breakdown or some kind of a crisis or an misunderstanding, or somebody's forgetful, or somebody, is tired or hungry or stressed because they're preoccupied with some work challenge that they have, and they lose it in the moment and they say some nasty or grumpy thing. And you never overdraw the account. So you can have so much goodwill that somebody can even throw a little tantrum in the moment, and they're forgiven instantly, because everybody's got their moments. We get possessed by our shadow, our dark side sometimes, and we can be forgiving in the moment. One of the things that we found about these blue ribbon couples that we interviewed for Secrets of Great Marriages, they were all champions of repair. It's not that they didn't have any troubles. They did. They had arguments. They fought about, the kids and the in-laws and where they were going to go on vacation, or where they were going to go out to eat, or who was going to vacuum and wash the toilet. They had all the ordinary garden variety things that we all have. But if they made a snide remark or a sarcastic remark, or they turned away and they, were avoidant, they knew how to put the correction in and take responsibility for their part in the breakdown. And they were willing to get vulnerable and apologize. And I say, I'm so sorry. That came out wrong. Would you be willing to let me do a do-over? I want to say it the way I really mean it. I didn't mean to have that cutting edge on my tone. And when the apology is thorough, and when it is sincere, not the fake apology, like, I'm sorry you feel that way, not that kind. I'm sorry, and I take responsibility for the specific way I just caused harm. That's a thorough apology, a well-timed apology. Maybe they have to go off and lick their wounds for a minute, or a few minutes or an hour or so. They may not be ready, and you can't force it. You have to be sensitive about your timing, and then you offer the apology when they're ready to receive you. And what can be even more important than the apology is what I learned from this incident, so that going forward, I can correct the behavior. Do you see? Sometimes talk is cheap, and you can use the apology just to get them off of your back, and then you go and do it again. So what is the good of that? And then to be vulnerable enough to say, are you willing to forgive me? And they may not be ready to forgive you. It's quite a process. And forgiveness needs to be thorough too. Even if you're ready to forgive them, that hurt may flare up again. and you may have to do it again, and you may have to do it again, because it's a process. It's not just one time. And sometimes people are a little confused about forgiveness. It is in no way, shape, or form excusing the bad behavior. They're still guilty that they caused harm, but it's for ourselves. We forgive because we don't want to carry that heavy stuff in our backpack. You know, it's like trying to climb a mountain with a 100-pound pack when you carry grudges. It's to lighten our load. And so making amends is a very important part of the repair process. And these couples that were so happy together and thriving together and had a rich life together, they were putting the corrections in and making amends when they caused harm, to show the other person, I really learned, and I'm going to show you that I learned, and I'm going to correct the behaviors that cause the harm, because I don't want to ever hurt you if I could help it. And that's a really powerful contract to make with the people that we love the most.
That's so beautiful, Linda. My goodness, you're giving us so much. I just feel so full. Thank you.
So I got an exercise, and I'm glad that you feel so full. It was my intention to put as much content as I could, but I want everybody here to personalize. I want them to do this exercise. Stop and think where they are, to give themselves a score on a 0 to 10 scale about how graceful they are managing conflict. Are they avoidant and a stuffer, or are they a blurter, or are they validating?
So you want this in the chat box? You want them to put it in the chat box?
It's not necessary. I just want everybody to take a moment to look inside and see. 0 is, I really suck at conflict. I need to do a 10-day intensive on it. And a 10 would be, man, I've been working this for years and I'm really getting good at it. And I'm congratulating myself right now. And there's always more to learn. And people are anywhere that they are on the spectrum. And to be honest about, you are here, no shame, no blame, just recognition. And the other question in the exercise, and what would it take on my part? This is the responsible. What would it take on my part to move the number up? If I was going to be even better than I am now at managing conflict, really gracefully, beautifully, respectfully, responsibly, what would that require of me? Because that shows people where their growing edge is. So just take a moment to reflect on that. 0 to 10. And then what's it going to take?
Excuse us, we just dropped our mic.
You don't have to reveal to anybody but yourself.
I just put it in the chat box so people could see those questions.
Thank you.
To reflect, yeah.
So we have a few minutes. Do we have a few minutes if people have questions, or maybe they want to share something?
Well, what I was intending was to just have us each share around our wisdom pool if there's some nugget or gem that we're going to take with us and really treasure, you know. So if you want to
love it.
Take away in the chat box, so we can just have that and I can call out some of them. Or if you want to unmute and you have something burning desire that you want to say, you can do that as well. And then we'll have a closing after that. Yeah. Okay, so putting in the chat box, what's one of my takeaways? What's one of my gems I took from Linda's talk and how I'm feeling now? Do you all know how to use the chat box?
Or you could speak it if you wanted.
What's your takeaway, honey?
My takeaway, I love the word graceful. I actually meant to use that myself in introducing you. I was going to use that word, and you used it a number of times. And I think that's really what it is that learning how to dance gracefully with your partner. And that does definitely take some refinement.
It does. I love the dance metaphor
Mhm.
because it is a dance. And sometimes when we're first learning how to dance with each other, it's a clumsy dance. But if we stay with it, we learn how to do what I refer to as the dance of love and freedom. We come close and then we let go when we're two unique, separate individuals. We individuate and then we come close again. And I think that sometimes people are grumpy and grouchy when they don't have enough close connection. And so any little thing can set them off. But when they learn how to be close with each other, they don't get into as many arguments. So there's a lot in it for getting this gracefulness in the handling of differences. I think people have less arguments and more good sex.
Well, this is the growing edge of what Heartwise is all about. It's this whole domain that you're outlining so beautifully. It's like the rose petals are left on the path for us to follow. So I really appreciate it so much, Linda, and all your wisdom and all your years of experience, and you and Charlie going at it and being so disclosing. It's really wonderful to be in your company. Thank you.
I was touched by your transparency as well. And your
we teach
heartfelt
what we need
compassion.
to learn, and we needed to learn how to be more open with each other. And that's our gift to our students, that we model for them being self-revelatory. Does somebody else have a takeaway in the chat?
Yes, being vulnerable invites others to do the same. Definitely will start using conflict management rather than saying conflict resolution.
Yeah.
Okay, I realize I need to be more self-aware, as well as the obvious needs to be willing to be vulnerable and to share. Beautiful. It's a cultivated taste. Love this language. And then someone asked about do-overs, more about do-overs. And in 2 weeks, Celeste Labadie is going to do her topic on repairs and do-overs. It's an essential topic. And I'm sure you covered it in your course that you've recorded that is going to be released in May for our Heartwise Relationship Academy. Yeah, so we have lots of opportunities to keep learning this. I mean, it's a whole new frontier. It's like we got all these new tips and tools and ways of being that aren't our reflective way of being, And
Linda, will you be available for a few minutes afterwards? We want to honor the time commitment, but if you'd be available for a few minutes if people do want to stay on and ask.
Yes, I can. And I just saw somebody mentioning unzipping in the chat. Visual, and the image of unzipping is to open and make ourselves available. The other image that I love, and I used this a lot when I was attempting to be more vulnerable, that I would see myself and my husband as in a full suit of metal armor. It's hard to dance and it's hard to get close. And you got this armor, take the helmet off, stop swinging the mace around, take the sword out of the sheath, take the armor off. And we practice personal disarmament with each other. And going through that visual about, if you want to get close, you got to take the armor off and make yourself vulnerable.
Beautiful. Those are good tips and tools. And we all have a lot to process here from what you're sharing. So
good.
Yeah. So if anybody wants to stay after the 8 o'clock mark and chat a little bit more, you're sure welcome to. I want to screen share here and show us our next week. And we have our 2 presenters for next week in our house here tonight. Let's see where they are. Here you are. Oh, that didn't come up right.
We got you, Linda, and we need to bring the next. Here we go.
Okay, so we have Kelly. Do you want to say hi? You want to unmute for a second?
Hi, everyone. So good to see everyone.
Thank you. And Emily is here too. Emily, you want to unmute?
Hi, guys. Thanks for
Hi.
coming. Fun. Linda, I really appreciated and enjoyed your talk. So glad I was able to make it.
Thank you.
Looking forward to hearing you next week.
Yeah, so these women are going to be sharing about how to create heart-wise families, how to keep encouraging our children and our loved ones, whether we're the parent or the child in the relationship, how to create that emotional closeness and intelligence and all the things that we do in our intimate relationships to do in our family life. So I'm really looking forward to you next week. So sign up if you haven't signed up yet and join us. These are recorded, so you can always have them later. I'm also going to share, let's see where my screen is. This is all such new technology.
Yeah, it is.
Okay.
Thank God it's you doing it.
All right, so this is our whole series. That's what I wanted to show you. Are you all seeing that there's these 6 sessions listed? You're
It's
not seeing
Kelly and Emily.
Oh, okay. Well, let's see. I have resume share. There we go. Maybe that does it. Can you see where it says the 6 sessions? No, huh? Weird. Okay.
Oh, well,
Let me just try one
it's on the
more.
link.
Just one more second here. I'm going to share this little slideshow just to show you some continuing processes that we're in. So here's our book, and you can order it on Amazon. So I'm screen sharing, hopefully. Whoops, that's not what I wanted. Yeah,
It might be
this-
good to just put the links
I
up.
see it.
All
Here
right.
it is. Here
it
it is. All right, let's see if this will work. All right, so you can see our Heartwise book, and it's on Amazon. It's an ebook and a paperback book, and it has 16 chapters with all different ways of dealing with our next phase in our relationship journeys here to go past codependency into this Heartwise domain. So
Evolution.
it's very exciting. Yes, evolution. And then we're going to rebrand everything as Heartwise, but this is our older brand, Soulful Couples. We're on Facebook, so connect with us on Facebook. And we have a Soulful Couples community, which we're going to rebrand as Heartwise community to include more people. So look for us on Facebook, and we can continue our dialogues and things. And did you know Jim and I have a podcast?
No, seriously.
Give your love life some love. And we've interviewed many of the authors, quite a few authors from the book. And we also have a whole series of repairs and do-overs and clean up on aisle 9. And what do you do with this? And, things that we've been teaching and sharing.
It's called the whole shooting match.
Yeah, so Linda and Charlie are on our podcast. So be sure to look up for that. It's on our soulfulcouples.com page. So you can see that, and you can sign up for any updates if you haven't already. Heartwise.us. You could keep in the loop here as we rebuild our brand. And so we are creating this Heartwise Relationship Academy. And this is just like such a dream come true. So I've been finding myself going like this a lot and tapping on these meridian points for the heart. And I've been doing it a lot in my sessions with my clients. And so this is kind of like the Heartwise little insignia. You want to try it with me? Feels so good.
So Linda, you and I are going to kick off the academy in mid-May.
Good.
Yes, and then Kelly and I are going to do a Heartwise family, and I'm going to do later in the fall a Heartwise course called the Us Space, how to cultivate and sanctify that precious space that, we're each individuals, and yet we have this shared space. And how do we make this shared space as graceful and bountiful and healing as we can? Making sure our little tender hearts are held dear. So those are the things we have to look forward to. And we're building this community. Jim and I have been community builders since the 70s around holistic health and wellness and around spiritual development. And now we're creating this couples this wisdom pool where many couples or singles can get together and share, learn from each other, because we all have such a wealth of information and experience. We all have our own wisdom. We all have that heart wise within us. And so I'm launching this whole love ambassadors, where you all, if you're interested, could be sending out things that we do. And as people sign up for the courses, then it puts it into a commission thing and you get a check, you get money, probably not a check, Venmo it. We're going to create that kind of ambassador program. So if you're interested, you can put your name in the chat box with your email and I'll send you the letter that explains more about it. I'd appreciate that. All right.
Thank you all so much for your attention tonight. And Linda, beautiful, flowing, fluid, and heartfelt delivery. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yes, so take a breath for a moment and just kind of orient yourself and just see what's happened as a result of these conversations. I kind of feel really stirred up inside. See how you feel. As we journey together on this heart-wise journey, it's just so fun to be with other people, be able to talk about these things. So we're going to end the program and end the recording. And if you'd like to stay on, and we'll have the gallery view, if you just want to visit and chat and have something burning to ask or tell, we'll do that for a few minutes. And otherwise, we'll say goodnight. Thank you so much. We hope to see you again for next week for Kelly and Emily. And the week after that, Celeste will do do-overs. And then the week after that, we'll close it with some great processes for being more heart-wise. So thanks a lot. Here goes the recording.